Naj, I don't know if you know how excited I get about these discussions, and I know that our viewers and our listeners are equally excited. I'm sure you're getting the email and the messages as well. It's always good to have you here. I think it is so incredibly valuable to me as well that we get to talk about the anxious attachment and the avoidant attachment and how we can become more secure, because I know we've both been on this healing journey. And I think it's so incredibly exciting that today we get to talk about what that healing journey looks like and how a person can get there. Are
Hmm.
you on board with me on this one?
I love this topic. I think it's a personal, something that we can really share our personal journeys and stories while talking about.
Yeah. Well, how about you tell me what's been working for you on the healing journey and when did you start? Was there like a time, a moment, a year when it was like, okay, I've got to do something about this? Because
Yeah. So my current partner, when we began dating, this was 2019, 2020, somewhere 21, somewhere in there. She's the one who brought it up to me. She'd say, "You're very present in the way that I expected. You're a therapist. She's also a therapist. You're very present in the way that I expected, but Monday through Thursday, you're like a ghost." This was COVID, so I was working a ton. And so, oh, I'm so busy working. And I really was. That's true. But, and when she's working a lot, the first thing she wants to do is connect and call and decompress. When I'm working a ton, yeah, disappear. I just, go into isolation mode. And that's when she was like, this might be an attachment issue. You might be avoidant. And then we started going through my relationship history together. And she was like, oh, you are definitely avoidant. Um, that's how it started.
hmm. Interesting. Mine started at 27 when
Okay.
I did not know anything about anxious attachment.
Okay.
It was just being in relationships with people who, when they were not in my circle or in my space, it felt like this energetic disconnect. It felt in my body like this person had disappeared.
Mm,
And I would get into my head, and my first thought were things like, they don't want to be with me. They're thinking about how to leave me. They don't know how to say that they don't want to be with me. They're probably seeing somebody else. And I would
mm,
be caught up with these thoughts, which turned into fear. And I'd reach out to my partner seeking that validation, asking questions like, why aren't you connecting with me? Because I just did
mm,
not understand what was going on. And the pain of that fear created just broke me down in 27, and I said I just can't deal with this anymore, and I
mm.
started to first work on myself long before knowing about attachment style. Like you, my partner and I got together when we I think it was 2000. What year are we in? 21 ish, I think.
Mhm.
And that's when the work really started, because I needed to build up an appreciation for him. He's just
Yeah.
such a gentle, wonderful, fully aware, insightful person that I thought, okay, this is where I need to build up the awareness, because I did not want to present to him the attachment styles. I didn't want to
Mhm.
say, you might be an avoidant. I did not want to do that. I wanted to more work on myself so that I could heal my anxious attachment style
Mhm.
and meet him where he's at. And what I started to notice is that as I worked on myself and I relaxed and I allowed him to just be, he started to show up for me the
Mhm.
way I needed him to.
Yeah.
And it's not been perfect.
Yeah.
No relationship is. But we've gotten to a place where it's easier to talk about certain things. And also, I think we both can decide on what's necessary to talk about and what we could just let go of and recognize it as a trigger within us. Yeah, that's where we're at.
That feels very similar to where we're at too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a recognition from both parties that there's
Mm-hmm.
work to do. Um, there's not this request that one person changes and the other one saying, "Well, it's not me. It's definitely you. You're making me feel this way." There's a recognition that, well, if we want this to work, we're gonna have to work together, and no one's saying one person's worse than the other, even though, I mean, I will admit to probably being the worst one. No one ever says it. It's sort of implied that both of us have to learn each other and how to work with each other. I was going to have to uh, access and speak about my needs more. She was going to have to recognize that I might need more space than she's used to or comfortable
Mhm.
with. And as we did that, everything balanced out. We find homeostasis within the relationship. It sounds like you did too. It can really work. Um, you probably see this all the time in your comments and messages with people trying to, they're saying, "Hey, my partner XYZ, they just did this. Are they going to come back to me? Can we make it work? What do I have to do to make this work?" I'm curious, what when you see a message like that, 'cause given that you've made it work and I've made it work, where do you go when you see someone ask you, can we fix this?
Yeah, we could fix it. I mean, what what I often respond when I respond to a comment, it's a well thought out, script that I believe the other person's ready to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But my first thought is yes, these relationships can work. What do you need to do? Focus on you, focus on working on yourself. It was the
Yeah.
only thing that worked for me. It's not about trying to change the other person, which I've done, I've tried to do for years. Focus on how can I change me so that the other person can be happy, or how can I get them to do what I want them to do to
Mm-hmm.
make me happy?
Yeah. Yeah.
All of that changed when I started to focus on what makes me happy. And that meant, really packing my life 110% with things that brings joy to me. So I'm not
Yeah.
dependent on my partner or anyone else to make me
Mm-hmm.
happy. And by doing that, you kind of let the pressure off of the other person.
Yeah.
It's like I have a lot of people will say, "Oh, just saying good morning is a small ask."
Yeah.
Yes, that might be a small ask for someone who's got an anxious attachment style when my focus is only on my relationship. That's the most
Yeah.
important thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
But if my ask, if that is asking me to stop my thought process because I'd rather put out a podcast there early in the morning, that's a big ask
Yeah. I'm
because
busy.
now I've got to put myself in a different emotional space. So, yes, they can work, but we really need to pay attention to who our partner is, what is it their needs are, and not project our needs onto them and focus more on our healing, making
Yeah.
ourselves happy, not put
Yeah.
that burden on somebody else.
It's I think that's so key. I actually borrowed a line, maybe not from you, but using your story. I've been using it with a lot of my clients, which is, they'll be talking about wishing someone, they could find a partner who would just love them the way they want to be loved. And, thinking about you, I often have been saying to them, I understand that you imagine that once you get the love you've never received, everything will be fine. That's what's missing here. But I can tell you through many, many cases, life doesn't work that way. You need to love yourself so fully that someone becomes an addition to, not the reason for you being
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
And, you can tell someone that, and I'll be honest, they don't really, doesn't sink in because I'm messaging that no, 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 I need love. That's the problem here. And then you wait 6 months, you wait a year, and they, over that time, they're saying, fine, 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 but I'll do the work. You're saying, do the work. I'll do the work. And as the work progresses, and you see them take themselves out to a dinner date without another person, go on these solo personal adventures, and they realize they're fine on their own, they go, oh, wow, I'm attracting a different kind of person now. I'm attracting someone that wants me, but I don't feel the need. I don't feel the stress around this anymore. I don't feel the feeling of lack that I had. And I think people are seeing that, and it's so clear. And again, I think about you and your journey when I talk to these clients.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what happens is, as an anxious attached, you get into the space of showing up for everyone, right?
Yeah,
Everyone else, so that you could
yeah,
get that love. And what happens is you're physically and mentally sitting in a place. You sometimes sit on your sofa, you're sometimes walking, but your mind is constantly thinking about the next meeting that you're going to plan, or a way that you could get them to go out somewhere with you. So you're always thinking about them. You've
Mm-hmm.
never learned to be by yourself. And so I believe that what the body does is what it's used to, because that's how it survived, right? If I'm only in one place and I'm thinking about the other person, then I don't know what it would be like to just do something for myself.
Mm-hmm. No,
What
what a
I've
good point.
learned, and something I share with my clients, is just try to do something that brings you joy. Usually
Yeah.
it's going back to something in your childhood, something that you
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed doing. Usually it's something creative. It might be
Yeah.
dancing, art, photography, something of the sort.
Yeah.
And this has worked for me. It's why I share it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's been music. I've been writing songs recently, playing the guitar. I write generally. um and when you start to do these things, the things that you enjoy other than your partner, your body starts to feel that joy, feel that peace. And what happens is that anything uncomfortable that happens, let's just say you get into a tiff with your partner, your brain starts to want to go towards the thing that made you happy, which might be, in
Mm-hmm.
my case, writing a song and or playing the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing the thing that makes you happy, somehow your brain starts to process what that tip was about. And you become a little bit more aware because now you're in a calmer space. You could
Yeah.
think a little
Yeah.
clearer.
Yeah.
And
No, that.
that helps relationships. So moving towards what makes you happy is one of the best. It's one of the easiest things that you can do to kickstart that healing journey
Mm-hmm.
for yourself, because your body
That's.
starts to feel better.
Oh yeah. That, I mean, that's the science behind that is super clear, right? Because so when you look at people who had a secure base, they had a
Mm-hmm.
parent, they had a caregiver that was present, attuned to them. One of the things they do is they develop creatively.
Mm-hmm.
They go out into the world and they have the freedom to be who they want to be, emotionally express and create. So what you're telling them is you're going to have to create a sense of internal security, self-expression, which is a lot of vulnerability to say make a song or paint. And all those people with a secure base, when they run into problems relationally, right? They go, oh, okay, well, this is intense, but I'm secure enough to figure this out, and maybe I'll use emotional expression. I'll vent to a friend. I have these tools in my tool bag, these very functional tools in my tool bag to process this moment and promote happiness and joy. Because I know how to be happy and joyful because I understand the connection to me and my feelings. I wasn't externally focused as a child. I was able to be internally focused. So you're pushing that focus back onto them, which is something as a muscle they haven't used in so long because they've had to be externally focused, chaotic environment. Now, as an adult, that doesn't work at all. They have no idea what they need. They don't know how to make themselves happy. They can't handle a conflict. And you're giving them this tool that they, hopefully would have gotten as a child, but didn't, and now they're redeveloping it. What a beautiful process.
It really is. I just love this new feeling. I still call it a new feeling, moving away from such an anxious, attached state to being, like just waking up. My partner and I, we don't live together. Um, and, just waking up in the morning and not needing that good morning, but knowing that, oh, he's probably just woke up. He's probably
Mm-hmm.
going through his the reels, listening to podcasts, getting ready for his day. And
Mm-hmm.
there I am, and I've got my routine where I wake up and I have my cup of coffee and I read. But there are things that brings me joy, and it's no
Yeah.
longer checking the phone. Oh, why didn't he message? Or
Mm-hmm.
has he forgotten me? So
Mm-hmm.
being in this space because of taking on the healing path, which is not easy. It is not easy. And I say this to people all the time. And I think perhaps it's why I keep saying I started this journey when I was 27.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now 44. And there are triggers that, I am still triggered from time to time. The difference is how I respond and react,
Yeah.
how quickly I can get into my head while I'm feeling something, while I'm having a conversation, and then
Yeah.
tell myself, this is an old script. It's not
Hmm.
true. I don't have to feel this way. Or to, sometimes you wake up in the morning, like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're worried about something that's going on. To get into your head quick enough and say, I'm safe. There's
Hmm.
no need to be afraid. Nothing's happening. I'll
Yeah.
deal with this tomorrow.
Yeah. That's the
So
best
that's
language.
been the biggest benefit of
Yeah.
taking on this journey, to know that you're going to find peace.
Yeah. That to me is the number one step and maybe the number one sign someone is on their way to healing is they can regulate and tell themselves they're safe, that they're okay. They don't need somebody to make them feel whole or better or to help soothe. They can do it on their own to some degree, to a large degree.
Mm-hmm.
And before, if you can't do that, and this is really clear with the science too, if you can't regulate your ability to form thoughts, make words, see the other person's perspective, just be present with them and understand what's really happening, all goes out the window. Because, like you said, it's the old script will now be at the forefront of your mind. And then you will confirmation bias your way through this whole conversation. See, look, I knew it. That's what's happening. It's happening again. You always do this. And then that person on the receiving end's like, whoa, 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 always? I can think of many times where I've not done this in the past week. Right. And then all of a sudden you have a huge conflict, a blow up. No one's being seen. No one's being heard. If people can regulate, if they can learn, and I would say it's true for me, and it's clearly true for you. As soon as the regulation happened, for me it was more of a shutting down, right? Because that's my on the polyvagal ladder, right? You go upwards into distress and expression, or downwards into shutdown. I was the shutdown, and as soon as I learned to manage, I mean, I guess very personally it would be the guilt and the shame of being told once again, you let me down. Where were you? How come you disappear on me? You're not really there for me when I need you. Oof. As soon as I managed to be present with that, things changed for me and
Yeah.
for my partner.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, what I used to be worried about was speaking up,
Yeah.
because I was met with that shutdown.
Yeah. Right.
And in my mind, when the shutdown happened, I thought my partner would leave.
Mm-hmm.
Then what I started to do
Yeah.
was not take responsibility for their feelings and their
Yeah.
thoughts. I did not
Okay.
put that pressure on myself. I would speak kindly about what's affecting me. I can say I'm uncomfortable with what's going on. I could feel discomfort here, but I can't right now articulate exactly which emotion I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say if I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm disappointed. Can't say exactly. I need some time to process.
Yeah.
But I would allow that person to know that their actions or action has been disappointing, right? And then I allow them the opportunity, because now I could see that they're capable of
Mm-hmm.
carrying that discomfort. I allow them the opportunity to process that on their own. And I
Amazing.
step away
Oh my
and
goodness.
let them show up the
Yeah.
way maybe is best for them. But then what I do for myself is, the discomfort's still with me, right? It didn't disappear. I just shared it. I pick up my journal
Mm-hmm.
and I
Yeah.
write about what happened.
Amazing.
And then I question it, like, why did I feel this way? Where is this coming from? How
Mm-hmm.
can I approach this in a different way in the future, so that I don't put myself in this position again?
Wow.
So,
That
it's
is
empowering me.
an amazing distinction because on the one hand, you need this person to know what happened. On the other hand, typically you'd also want them to help you process and vent. But to them, those two things are the same. First, you told me what I did wrong, and now you're just laying into me about it. No, but you're like, no, no, no. The first part is what you did wrong. Now I just need you to be present with me. And like, listen, to me, that is an onslaught. I feel overwhelmed. I'm just being reminded what I did wrong, and I'm going to shut down. I can't handle all of this. And what's interesting from the perspective of the avoidant person is, first of all, when you told me what I did wrong, I wanted to back away, but maybe I stayed present. But now that you're laying into me, I'm definitely backing away. And you are saying, listen, I feel a little abandoned when you do this. And then so I disappear fully, and you're like, see, look, I told you, you are going to abandon me. I knew it. And the whole conflict and the pursuer distancer thing just starts to happen at an extreme level at a very quickened pace
Yeah.
because and again, I don't want to put this on the anxious partner, but if there's a little bit of containment, at least a little bit of self-processing and venting, they will notice that their avoidant partner can actually tolerate quite a bit of conversation. It just can't be this intense, why aren't you there for me? You're never there for me. If you loved me, you would take care of me. Because that is actually a lot of criticism. And most people, secure or avoidant, are going to respond with a bit of protectiveness when they're being criticized.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, as someone who is more from that anxious attachment style, I would have done the same thing. It's just I
Sure.
couldn't process it. And
Yeah.
when you're attracted to an avoidant attached person intimately, you're also, if you look around at your friend circle and your family circle, those are the people you tend to go towards because
Hmm.
there are things about them that is attractive. The fact
Yeah.
that they're independent and they seem to know what they've got going on for them. However, what I learned and what I've learned is that I was intense. I had to take responsibility. I had to look at myself from outside of me and see who I was in a relationship. And it wasn't, yes, while I was trying to grab onto a partner and pull them back
Hmm.
to me, in
Hmm.
their eyes, they must have seen it as an attack.
Oh yeah.
They must have felt an attack because
Hmm.
there I am talking about ways that they're not showing up for me, that this
Yeah.
person's not showing up for me, hoping.
Yep.
The intention is not to push them away. The intention is to,
Hmm.
hey, wake up, do something about this. I
Hmm.
don't want to leave you, but I
Yeah.
might just do it.
Yeah.
And in their mind, they must have been thinking, you're
Oh
not
yeah.
good enough. You're pointing out all my flaws. You're telling me that you're going to leave me. I'm
Hmm.
pushing you away. And I think that, developing empathy is not the easiest thing because we
Yeah.
tend to think that the other person feels exactly the way we do.
Yeah.
You have to be able to look at their past, look at their trauma, and fit yourself into their skin.
Yeah. Unpopular opinion. No one's going to agree with me on this, but in that moment, even though the dialogue online is uh, avoidants are just like narcissists, all they think about is themselves in that moment. And when both parties are dysregulated, when both parties cannot hear the other person, I think they're equally guilty, not of narcissism, obviously, but of very self-centered behavior because anyone lost in their distress cannot see someone else's cannot have sympathy for someone else, cannot have empathy for what they're going through. All you're thinking is, why are you doing this to me? And that is that to me is an inherently narcissistic script. I'm not to
Mm-hmm.
blame. You're doing this to me. How come you don't care about me? If you cared, you wouldn't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the feedback I give my anxiously attached clients is I'll say to them once the relationship's been really developed, I'll say, I'll be honest with you, it sometimes feels like I have to thread the needle here. That I have a lot of things that I want to talk about, but if I say them wrong, if I don't say them in the way you need me to say them, you're going to feel let down. You're going to get upset. And, we have the relationship, the kind of relationship where I know how to thread the needle with you. So we haven't had these blowups. But if I was dating you, if I was just, not someone who spent the last decade learning how to do this, I think we'd have a ton of conflicts. And
Mm-hmm.
that's for many of my clients a little bit of a light bulb moment.
Well, again, like I just mentioned, right? When we're attracted romantically to someone and they have a particular attachment style, unconsciously, what I'm noticing as well is that we tend to attract the same person
Oh
in
yeah.
circle. So I'm not
Yeah.
surprised to hear that maybe majority of your clients are of the anxious attachment style. You want to guess what's the majority of mine?
Yeah, oh, I imagine. I imagine.
More
I've
of
never
my
put that
clients are
together.
avoidance. Yeah.
I have a lot of avoided men and
Oh,
a lot
okay.
of anxiously attached women, and I think it's profound. And I will say to people who are like, oh, I've been working with this, you know, therapist for a long time, and I'll say, well, go find someone of the opposite gender. Wait, why
Mm-hmm.
would I do that? I said, because you need to get triggered. You
Mm-hmm.
need to go have
Mm-hmm.
someone bring up your stuff and you're comfortable with your same sex, same gendered therapist. You guys probably have a lot of connection, but that is not what needs to happen here. What you need is
Yeah.
someone that makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, you have to have someone who is not in agreement with you, and you get
Mm-hmm.
those triggers, and you ask yourself, why am I being triggered by this?
Mm-hmm.
If we're looking for the same, then we're not going to grow. But yeah, it's interesting to see our circle and learn from that. I find that one of the things I that helped along my healing journey was mirroring my partner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't reach out, let him reach,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that allowed me to sit in that space of discomfort
Yeah.
for a long
Yeah.
time because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew what he was doing. He was at work, or he was at the gym or doing his thing, but it
Mm-hmm.
forced me not to move forward. That allowed him the space to
Yeah.
come in.
That
So
that's what
in
happens in
a
my
in a
relationship
way,
too.
and I know he's incredibly aware. I know he's very insightful. I don't know how you know how active he is with attachment styles. As I mean, this is a part of my work. So a lot of it is really just focusing on myself, on my growth, not checking
Mm-hmm.
in on how he's healing or what he's doing. And we just tend to enjoy each other's company. And again, it doesn't mean that we don't have struggles in the relationship, but we're now in a place where we're better able to handle it. And we have
Mm-hmm.
had some troubles. We've
Sure.
had some troubles, but it's how you approach each other, kindness, compassion, empathy, um, space,
Mm-hmm.
respect, someone I highly, highly respect.
Well, to me, that's another very important sign of someone who's on their healing journey. For him, it's can we make this work? Instead of ugh, another conflict, you're probably not right for me. Ugh, you know what? I just need a few days. I need a few days to figure this out. It's, you know what? I think we can do this. Let's figure this out together. That is to me the sign of healing for the avoidant, and I think for the anxious person, it's instead of we can figure this out. Don't leave. We'll do it. It's this is hard. We should get to the bottom of this, but it's also like if we can't, I get it. We should try. And there's such a different energy behind we should try. Let's try to do this. Um, that doesn't come from a place of desperation, doesn't come from a place of fear. It's just recognizing the reality of what is or what cannot be.
Yeah. What do you think about having that conversation when it's calm? The conversation about how do we how do you deal in times of conflict or
Mm-hmm.
discomfort? Ask
Mm-hmm.
your partner, what is your way of feeling comfortable when we're having an argument? Of course,
Mm-hmm.
no one wants to have that argument, but we know if we're in a relationship with someone, it's probably going to happen. So prepare your partner and ask, do you like having some space to process, to decompress,
Yeah.
and then come forward? Or do you feel like you need to solve the problem right away?
Mm-hmm.
And because what we're doing here, we're really focused on the anxious and the avoidant attachments, right? So if we can say as an avoidant attached, um, I would rather we talk about it a little bit and I get some space to think and come back,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the anxious attached says, well, I like resolving things right away so it doesn't happen again. But
Mm-hmm.
now we can't do that. We're not in that space just yet to do that thing for the other person.
Yeah.
Can we compromise? Can I take a walk to the cafe and spend an hour?
Yeah.
Can I take a walk around the block to see how I feel and then check in and let you know if I'm ready for this or
Mm-hmm.
not? But to
Mm-hmm.
come up with compromises instead of waiting for the big blow up.
Yeah, I mean that's the secret. Again, it's homeostasis. What can this relationship bear? What does my partner need? What do I need? What's the middle ground? What can we both uh internet connection's dying. Oh, there we go. What can we both handle and need? I think the challenge there, and what you've navigated so well, is so many people who are avoidant will say, well, I'm fine. Keep talking. And they will not be aware that they are not fine and cannot handle it. And then half an hour later, like, you know what? You just don't understand what I'm going through, right? Because they're actually afraid to speak up or don't really feel the overwhelm in the moment until they start to shut down. That's another one of my weird pushbacks on the the partners who are anxious is I don't actually believe you're as attuned to your partner as you think you are. Because if you were, you'd see very clearly that they aren't attuned to themselves. And so they are telling you they're fine and they're not. But if you also bothered to just ask yourself, are they fine? Can they handle this? You would know very quickly, we've been down this road. I know they need time. And I lose sight of that because I want to do this now.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
don't want to put it, it's not their responsibility. But again, you're in a partnership. So you share responsibility for making sure the problem is solved together. And if your partner can't handle something, I think it's important for both partners to be aware of where their partner is at in that moment and what they can and cannot handle.
Yeah, well, my thing is really, if you choose to be with this person, then you have to figure out a way of accepting them for who they are, because
Big
trying to
time. Yeah.
change them is not going to work. It only
Yep.
it's easier,
Yeah.
and that alone is difficult to change ourselves,
Yep.
right? But that's
Yep.
the only control we have. Now, I want to share how I can tell when an avoidant attached person is shutting down. It's
Mm.
signs that you can see. And I would really appreciate it if after you could share how you can how you recognize that an anxious attached person perhaps need to slow down and process
Mm-hmm.
before continuing that conversation. Now, I will notice there's a blank look that comes across their face. It
Mm-hmm.
and for me, it tells me that whatever I'm saying is a little too overwhelming. It may not be uncomfortable. It just might be about sharing about my day that does not interest the other person. But
Sure.
what I find is that with the avoidant attached, you will see a blank look that comes across the face as soon as they have lost interest or no longer present. And it tends to happen with most people, right? We tend to go blank, but it's very, very obvious. And for an anxious attached person, if you don't know that this is just overwhelming, it's too much pressure on the system, on the computer, that's the brain, you might start to feel like you're being neglected or rejected,
Mm-hmm.
or the person doesn't care about what you're saying. I find when I ask a question like, "Are you still with me?" It brings them back. Right? And if I don't get the go ahead to continue on the conversation, I check in with myself. Is this even important to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what? Just let it be and just carry on. But
Mm-hmm.
that's one sure sign. Shaking of the leg. If you're sitting together, it tells that the person's feeling a little uncomfortable. They want to move on from the topic. And it's a good time. We can take a pause. We can stop that conversation, get back to it later on, because we don't know what that person is going through in that moment. They may have things about work that they're not talking about, their children, or whatever else is going on. What signs do you see that in an anxious attached person, that perhaps by listening to you can now be a little bit more aware of, okay, maybe I need to pull back, maybe I need to stop?
Yeah, the glazed eyes, and there, there's I think people who are in very secure partnerships where the glazed eyes happens, like you said, and that I think has a lot to do with one person needing to externally process, and their way of connecting is to share every detail of their life, and the other person's like, what why are you telling me all of this? What is important? And they're sort of trying to figure it out, but also losing interest because there isn't a lot that you need from that person other than to just be heard. If and I think it is true, if you love me, you will listen to me. That's part of how I like to connect. But I love what you said, but it doesn't mean the opposite is true. That if you're not listening to me, that you don't love me. It just means you're maybe bored, which I think is an okay thing. Sometimes we are boring. Sometimes you're sharing about your day and I'm tired. I've worked all day and I don't need to connect that way. What I need to do is sit in silence with your physical presence. And that to me is connection. So I think there's just a lot of individual differences that have very little to do with attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Then on top of that, the 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 layer that of attachment that becomes important is what I feel when I'm not getting what I want in that moment. Because a secure person will go, "Hey, are you with me?" And I think that's a sign that you've become a lot more secure. Are you here? Hey, check back because you're gonna say, "Hey, no, you don't get to run away into your mind. You're gonna stay present with me, and I'm gonna ask, request, and demand some of that." And they're gonna go, "Sorry, sorry, sorry. Here I am." But if you are easily triggered still, you haven't done the healing, him tuning out is now an affront to his, and he doesn't love you, he doesn't care about you. It starts the wheels turning. Similarly, as the avoidant, if you're just talking at me, if I really am connected to what I'm capable of giving you, I say, listen, I'm had a long day. I'm not going to be completely present. If you're okay with that, please continue. But if I haven't done my work, I'm immediately shutting down because I'm like, oh no, this person wants to just talk at me. They're not even paying attention to the fact that I've had a long day. They don't see what I've been going through. Do I voice that to you? Of course not. Do I tell you I'm overworked? No, of course not. I just feel like you don't see what I've gone through. I start to get a little annoyed. Then I start to shut down. Then I back away. And that starts the whole process. So if the avoidant can just tell you what they're available for or not, that to me is like the ultimate goal here, like them having a very, very real check-in with themselves. Oh, I've
Yeah.
had a long day. I'll be honest with you, I don't have the space for this.
Yeah. And I've actually had that. I've actually had him say, "Oh, babe, it was just something at work that happened. I had to deal with it." And that's my cue to, okay, relax. It's not important. I don't need to know exactly what's going on. I think that it happens a lot in these relationships, these dynamics where the anxious attached will launch into, "Oh, tell me what happened. Let me help you through this."
Hmm.
Whereas if you understand the avoidant attached person, they're going to talk to you about it when they feel like talking about it. Sometimes they just don't want to deal with something that was uncomfortable at work. They want to leave the work thing at work and just
Yeah.
be in a happy, comfortable space with you.
Hmm.
So, respecting the other person to show up and talk when they're ready to really helps the relationship along. It also helps our healing as an anxious attached person because we can just sit with our thoughts and remind ourselves that we don't have to launch into solving someone else's problems so that they could see our value,
Yeah.
right? I know you've got to run. I want to ask you, what tips would you give a person, when it comes to their healing, like right now? What can they start doing right now?
Hmm. Well, I'm actually launching a course based on what a person can do to sort of speed up their healing journey. And the basic ideas, we talked about, and the research suggests someone who is missing that secure base needs to find a way to get that security within themselves before
Mm-hmm.
they launch into the world. Otherwise, they're going to be looking for someone else to fill what was missing. So, when you think about that secure base and the attachment needs someone has, you can sort of break them down into someone who was accessible, someone who was attuned, and someone who was involved. Right. So the accessibility created regulation. The attunement created access to what I'm feeling, so I know what I need, and the involvement helped you understand I am my worthiness. You're present for me. You're at my games. You're at my birthdays. So I am cared for. Those messages are the basis of a secure base. If those messages are missing, if those you have to figure out how to get them yourself. And so again, the research says find a secure base person. Find a relative or a therapist or a coach, someone who can create a secure relationship with you. Um, which is one way to do it. My way is going to be a little more group projecty, and people will go into their own histories and their narratives and understand what was missing, understand how they can develop that on their own, and
Mm-hmm.
then they can take those behaviors into relationships and say, okay, now I want to find the rest of that security. Right? Once you get a certain amount, you don't have to get all of it by yourself. You have to get just enough, so you're not making someone else responsible for it. But
All
then you
right.
can go and finish that evolution with a partner and sort of finish that sense of fulfillment that you're looking for.
All right, well, I'm going to add on to that, which means they're going to have a lot of information to start working on their
Sure.
healing right now.
Yeah.
Mine is to start going towards what makes you happy.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
body needs to start recognizing its own power. You get to start to see that you are in control of your happiness, depending on the choices you make.
Yeah.
Right, the moment you get into doing the things that makes you happy, that's where your body's going to want to go towards.
Yeah.
And it's how we can set our boundaries as well, our boundaries with ourselves
Mm-hmm.
on what we will tolerate, what we won't
Yep.
tolerate. And in that, when we start to set those boundaries, we're also respecting ourselves. And all of this combines into how we love ourselves and how we expect and ask people to show up for us. And the
Yeah.
greatest thing about all of this is that we start to appreciate where other people are at. Because when
Yeah.
we see what our needs are and we could empathize with ourselves, we can
Yep.
start to see that their needs might just be different. We
Yeah.
don't have to understand them, but we can respect them as
Yep.
well. So move towards what makes you happy. And my technique of journaling is to not only write about the events that's happened in your life, but why were you triggered? Ask yourself
Mm-hmm.
questions. Why did
Mm-hmm.
I feel the way I felt? How is this different from my past, or how is it similar to my past? When did I feel this way before?
Mm-hmm.
Is it even real? Question yourself in your journaling. Journaling is not just about writing down what our day looked like. And don't forget to be grateful for something. If you write something, about a tip that you've had with your partner, and you're focused on that, make sure at the end of solving that internally, write about what you're grateful for. What did they do during that day that you're
Mm-hmm.
thankful for? How did that make you feel? So,
I
yeah,
love it.
those would be good starting points for
Mm-hmm.
them.
I keep telling people who ask me, why is therapy or a coach so important when you're healing an attachment wound? And I tell them, when you haven't received the connection and attunement that you've needed, and you find someone who spent the last decade or so developing that skill, something that was lost is finally found. You're finally getting that thing that was missing. And then the journal exercises that you're talking about are profound, because you're taking, someone gets to feel what it's like to be attuned to in session with you. And then they go out and attune to themselves in that same
Mm-hmm.
way. You're building the muscle that they can take out into the world and then finally reflect and self reflect and know what they need and want.
Yeah,
Changes their
it's
life completely.
it sure does. If you don't mind, can we talk a little bit more about how the avoidant attached person
Yeah,
can work on their healing? How can they approach it?
sure.
Because I know
Yeah,
it's really, really difficult for them
yeah,
to more so difficult for them to speak up about how they're really feeling, what's going on with them
yeah.
without that fear of being judged or rejected. So if we can do that.
Yeah. So, number one is they have to make sure that they understand how to regulate, right? The shutting down, the backing away, the running away, just understanding that's my process from a non-judgmental point of view. Because if they can't regulate at all, the work can't really begin. And so they have to find ways to do that. More importantly, we get into the thoughts that sort of lead to the abandonment of the relationship. So maybe there's someone better out there for me, or this thing out there is going to make me happy, or wouldn't I be happier out here? I get really cognitive. I use CBT tools to challenge those thoughts really directly. So maybe if they're in a relationship, we launch directly into, what about this relationship is worth saving? And so I sort of turn up the volume on the voice that's been really quiet, the one that says, this person is right for me. I know, because I've been through several iterations of this problem. And every time I think I should bail, I find someone new, and the same thought comes up. So
Mm-hmm.
I get them clear on what I call compatibility data. Why is this relationship good? What is it you need from a person? And does this person create the attachment safety, the physical needs, the emotional needs that you know you need? Then, and now you finally have. So what is your real complaint here? Oh, my real complaint is, when things get hard, I don't know how to face it. Okay, well, now we can challenge that, right? So you no longer have some superficial complaint. You have a real issue within the relationship. We tackle that, and that's more emotional. So now the emotional side is, I get overwhelmed. I feel afraid of closeness and intimacy. I feel guilt, and I feel worried, and I feel hurt. I don't know how to deal with those feelings. I never have before. So, right. So we approach it cognitively, then we approach it emotionally. And once that person has a very firm foundation of understanding their thoughts and feelings, they can go into that relationship and just not get triggered, not want to run away, or when they feel the desire to run away and they know how to challenge it because they're recognizing, oh, this is my pattern, these are my triggers, and this person is worth investing in. I just have to stay still long enough so that the things so I can sit with and move through this moment.
Hmm. Thank you so much. I know I could continue this for another few
I
hours,
know. Well, we'll do it
but
again.
thankfully, yes, thankfully, we have the opportunity to do it again. For those of you, I'm going to add you as a collaborator on this so
Thank
people
you.
know how to find you.
Of
Is there
course.
any way that, specifically, that you would like for them to connect with you?
I mean, Instagram right now is probably the best way. They could always email me, najaliKhan.mft@gmail.com. Those are the best ways to get at me.
I am very excited about your course. Can't wait to
Thank
hear
you.
about it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
10 years of work all culminating into one course. So,
Good
mhm.
stuff.
Thank you.